So hi everyone, my name is Dr. Caroline Taylor-Walker and I'm talking here from Heroes Home Doctor in Torquay. Now today I thought I'd give you a little bit of information about sunscreen. Obviously everyone's aware of sunscreen and we use it a lot, but there's lots of things that people have questions with us about all the time. So we obviously use sunscreen because it's proven to reduce our risk of skin cancer, which none of us want, and melanoma is they're one of the biggest cancers in Australia, but it can also reduce premature aging. So that's something to just keep in mind as well. So when we look at sunscreen, what we're looking at is deciding which one we should use. And we usually look at something called the SPF. Now the SPF stands for the sun protection factor. So you normally see this on the bottle like so. It's basically, the SPF is basically a measure of how long it will take for the UV rays from the sun to redden the skin compared to if you didn't have any SPF on. So it's a little bit like a time scale. So here we have a 30, so that means it will take 30 times longer to redden the skin using this sunscreen than it would do without the sunscreen in the same conditions, and the same with the 50. So the 50 means it will take 50 times longer to redden your skin without the sunscreen in those daily conditions. And that varies on an individual. So for example, I may well get redder skin being quite pale than it might do for you. The other thing we look for is, or need to understand with the SPF, is how much of the UVB rays it stops us from getting. So it's the UVB rays that we worry about as in regards to skin cancer. They penetrate that top layer of skin and increase our risk of skin cancer. So the SPF is telling us as well how much of those UVB rays it screens us against. So an SPF 30 screens against 96.7% of UVB rays, and a 50 screens us against 98% of UVB. So you can see that's why it's recommended you only need a 30 plus, because the difference between them is really only 1% in regards to how much protection a 50 gives above a 30. Now, there is another kind of UV radiation from the sun called UVA. Now, UVA is actually there quite a lot of the time. It can come through the clouds, it can come through the sun, the windows, and it penetrates deeper into the skin. It's much milder, but penetrating deeper and being there all year round, it can increase our risk of things like wrinkles, skin sagging, that premature aging, and over time increase our risks of skin cancer. Now, currently there isn't a rating scale for UVA. So if it's added to the sunscreen, it's then called broad spectrum sunscreen. So you'll normally see it on here. So I don't know whether you can see it or not, but it says broad spectrum protection. So that means it protects you against the two UV rays, the UVA and the UVB. Now, in regards to sunscreen, there's lots of talks about it because there's two different types. One is called a chemical, but actually a chemical filter, but actually it's otherwise known as a UV organic filter. They basically form a film on the skin and they absorb the UV light so it cannot penetrate into the skin and increase our risk of skin cancer. The other type of sunscreen is called a physical form. Now, these ones actually reflect the light. So we put them on the skin, and these are things like your titanium dioxide and your zinc oxide, and they reflect the light or scatter the light. So again, it cannot penetrate into the skin. Now, these physical ones are actually kind of chemical at all as well. They're both kind of marketed as being, it's marketed as being organic, but all sunscreens, the ingredients are actually chemically derived. So none of them are actually really like as organic as you would hope. The physical ones, there has been concern over time about nanoparticles. So what they do is they shrink down the particle size of the zinc to make it invisible. And there's been concerns with some research as to whether these nanoparticles can get into our system and cause us concerns. To date, there isn't evidence to confirm this, but concern that research is still ongoing. So what we normally recommend is to maybe try and get the non-nano size ones. So you're looking for 100 nanometers or above, those larger particles, especially for children, just to make sure that you are safe. So both the chemical and the physical ones are safe and effective. Some market the physical ones as organic, but again, sunscreen ingredients are all chemically derived, and physical ones are actually inorganic molecules. So that's something to just be aware of. Now, overall, yeah, we talked about the them being broadband, broad spectrum, so that's all good to look for. So when should we actually apply the sunscreens? So in regards to applying the sunscreens, you apply them when the UV index is 3 or above. So if it's below 3, you don't necessarily need to put sunscreen on. You also need to remember to put them on 20 minutes before you go out in the sun and reapply it about every 2 hours. In regards to applying it, you want to squeeze out about a teaspoon amount for each limb, a teaspoon amount for your front, a teaspoon amount for your back, and a teaspoon amount for your face. So it works out for an adult about 7 teaspoons that you need. We do recommend using one that is a cream rather than a spray. We are concerned that with a spray, you might not actually apply enough sunscreen onto the skin, and then it may not protect you as it should do. We recommend that you use it on everybody except those under 6 months of age. So in regards to which one you should use, it comes down to choice really. You can use any sunscreen that you feel comfortable using. The main thing to be aware of is that it's TGA approved. So all sunscreen in Australia that's being marketed as sunscreen should be TGA approved. And that means that it is safe and effective for use. You can tell whether it's TGA approved because it will have a number on it, this Australian number on the bottom. The ones I've got here, I've got it on the bottom. This one here has got it on the bottom. This one here, again, has got it on the bottom. And this one here has got it on the bottom. So by seeing that TGA number, you know that it's the same. And that means whether I pick up this 30 or this 30, they're identical. They're going to do the same thing. If I pick up this 50 or this 50, they're identical and they're going to do the same thing. So we basically recommend that you use a broad spectrum sunscreen. So that means it covers UVA and UVB rays, that it's minimum 30, so SPF 30 plus, that it's also water resistant, and remember to reapply it. Now, a lot of cosmetics and a lot of makeup brands and skincare brands do have SPFs in them. But it is, you do have to remember to reapply them when they're put on in the morning, say at 7 a.m. By 9 a.m. they're not working as a sunscreen anymore. So you do have to remember to reapply it. If also the SPFs do not add up. So if, for example, you put a moisturizer on with an SPF 20 and then put a foundation on with an SPF 20, you're not going to have an SPF 40. You are only going to have an SPF 20 or the highest SPF that you've put on. If you're going to put makeup on and you want sunscreen on, we do recommend you put the sunscreen on first and then put the makeup on over the top. So the sunscreen really is filming that film over the skin and protecting you. So we also recommend you store sunscreens under 30 degrees. So do be careful on hot days where you're storing them, and remember to check the expiry date before you use them, because they do tend to get left around and you might be using them when they have already expired and they're not going to work. Please also do remember to protect yourself from the sun as well. So if you're outside a lot, remember to wear your hats and your shades, go into the shade and put some clothing on. Now, there are some ingredients that people are concerned about within sunscreens, and most of the time on the back you can see the list of ingredients. What I will do, there's a whole number of ingredients that I have rated as green, amber and red, where red is a don't go there, amber is obviously maybe bad and be careful, and green is totally fine. But what I'll do is I'll post those on our social media pages over the coming weeks so you can see those ingredients, because there's a lot and unfortunately some of them I cannot pronounce either. So I don't want to embarrass myself on this talk. So I hope that covers everything that you need to be aware of in regards to sunscreen. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Email us or contact us on social media, and if not, look out for our post on social media coming up recently with the sunscreens of ingredients. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.